Remembering Grace is a little booklet of 13 stories about grace, written by Fred Jassett. This morning I want to share one of them with you, called Earthquakes, because its message seems so timely in terms of the pandemic we are living through. Unlike an earthquake, I can't point to the exact moment this pandemic struck, but with most people, am aware of and wondering about future aftershocks, currently being called flare-ups or second waves. The good news, I suppose, is that unlike earthquakes, we continue to be able to hope and pray for scientists to find therapeutics and vaccines to give us some good weapons to fight this battle beyond our personal, responsible choices and behavior. But there are lessons here for any situation. So here then is the short story called Earthquakes. There are 3 new garbage cans in my backyard. They are filled with emergency supplies: canned food, water, clothes, sleeping bags, tools, first aid stuff, flashlights and batteries. I want to be ready in case we have the big earthquake geologists predict for the Pacific coast. The day I first prepared these cans, I thought, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? Why not just move to a safer place? Why are so many of us living in this area we know could be radically damaged at any moment without warning? Well, that got me wondering about where earthquakes are on the scale of bad things that can happen unexpectedly. Where do they rank in comparison to, say, house fires or drunk drivers or crazed gunmen in public places? Where are they on the scale with the lump in the breast, the abnormal prostate, the flesh-eating bacteria, the midnight phone call? This story, by the way, was published in 2006, so I bet if he wrote a revised edition, he might include pandemic in that list. As we grow older, he continues, we realize that there are thousands of potential disasters both around us and inside us. Our lives can be irrevocably changed at any hour of any day by calamities that affect everyone or that no one is aware of except for us. The first year Chris and I were in love, I was in seminary in Berkeley and she was a university student in Seattle. We both did a lot of traveling around the country. We were together only twice for very short times. So we developed a little code to express our faith that no matter what happened, we would be together again. I might say on the phone, "I'll see you in September," or on Sunday. Or on Sunday was the code. It meant that if something happened to one of us, we'd meet again at the resurrection in God's place, wherever that might be. Somehow in the flurry and hurry and bustles of births and adoptions and deaths, of moving in and out of homes, raising 4 children and all the other stuff of 44 years of marriage and family life, we stopped saying it to each other. But we never stopped believing it. The best we can do is to work to prevent catastrophes and, when we can, to prepare for the ones we can't. We eat our vegetables and we buy life insurance. We wear our seat belts and check the batteries in the smoke alarm. We do what we can, knowing there is no final security in this world and that none of us will escape from it alive. And then he concludes, and this is important, the key to living in this dangerous world is to see every moment as a gift and an opportunity to live as fully as we can, knowing that whatever happens to us, we belong to God. So in the end, after we have done what we can to avoid or prepare for the earthquakes, the tornadoes, the floods of life, and here I would add pandemics, we need to remember that our final security is in God's hands. And God has really good hands. So I would just further add to that wonderful story that while it is said, you know that ad, we are in good hands with Allstate, I would say we are in better hands with Jesus, who has already paid all the premiums for a lifetime on Good Friday. And so this talk about hands at the end of the story brings to my mind some new words for an old song. I just want to offer this now as a closing gift. He's got Mike and Jack and the vestry in his hands. He's got Marcia and Lewis in his hands. He's got Steve, Lord Elizabeth in his hands. He's got St. Dunstan's in his hands. He's got the greeters and the ushers in his hands. He's got Joe Verger and the acolytes in his hands. He's got the choir, altar guild, DOK in his hands. He's got this parish in his hands. He's got Art and the finance folk in his hands. He's got George and the stewardship folk in his hands. He's got Lucinda, Brian, and the diocese in his hands. He's got them all in his mighty hands. He's got our youth, children, and parents in his hands. He's got our Montessori school in his hands. He's got old-timers, newcomers in his hands. He's got the whole parish in his hands. He's got Noe and St. Andres in his hands. He's got Nancy's Project and I Help in his hands. He's got Common Thread and the Foundation in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the search committee in his hands. He's got the candidates coming in his hands. He's got a brand new rector in his hands. He's got a new church in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. He's got you and me, sister, in his hands. He's got all our neighbors in his hands. She's got the whole world in her hands. God bless you and thank you for 10 wonderful months.